Hey guys, it's Kendra.
And this is Jessica. And you're listening to
Lucid Lab. It's election day.
Yes, when this comes out, it is election day here in America.
Everyone that's not in America, please send all your good vibes and prayers and whatever you believe to America because we need all of it. We
do.
We cannot let Donald Trump be our president again. So let's hope that it goes well tonight.
It simply cannot happen. And I have faith that it will.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's been a pretty uneventful week for me, just cleaning house, working.
I mean, same. I was out in my garage yesterday moving a lot of stuff around, so it's kind of nice to sit down for once because I was on my feet all day yesterday doing that.
Yes, I understand that because I was cleaning my house top to bottom because I had a sleepover with my kiddo on Friday. We made all these cute little fall foods and everything, but
Oh, cute.
I was like, I got to clean the house and I got to set up the guest room and all of that. I have a guest room now, which is nice. So that they had somewhere to stay. But now I love it because I come home and my house is just so clean and I have my candles going and it smells like fall and it makes me very happy.
Good. I almost put up my Christmas tree yesterday. Only because I needed the space in the garage that I was taking up.
Funny.
And I was like, well, I could just take this in and then it'll give me the space that I need.
I was walking because I, do my steps every day. I'm trying to, whatever. And there was a house in the neighborhood and we're recording right now. It's not quite Halloween yet. And they were literally putting up their Christmas lights and they had paid people to do it. And they were putting the little decor in the yard with like Santa Claus and snowmen.
Wow.
I'm like, damn it. It's not even November.
Maybe they're going on a trip.
Yeah, maybe. Or like that was when those people were available to come do the lights for them.
True.
They had a booked schedule. But yes, I'm ready. I think everywhere we go now, it's like Halloween is already discounted. And Christmas is taken over.
Yeah. I really might just put it up.
Do it.
Why not?
Have you heard of this whole concept of dopamine decor?
No, but that makes sense.
It's all over TikTok and it's something that I'm going to start embracing and it's just decorating your space for yourself.
Yeah.
I know you already do this well. I haven't done it well because I've always been married or had kids and I feel like I decorated my house to make it look, a certain aesthetic and now I'm like, fuck it. I just want to do what I want to do that makes me happy when I walk into my space. So putting up your Christmas tree, do it if it makes you happy.
Sure.
And like we all need like more dopamine boosts throughout our day.
That's interesting that you said I do it. And I don't really look at my place like that, but it is. It's just a collection of all the things that I like, just randomly placed places.
It's eclectic, I guess is the other way to describe it.
And the tree, I don't think I would do the ornaments yet, but the lights on the tree.
Yeah, lights are always
That's
great.
Cool. So we really don't have much to say this week. We're kind of just spitting shit out. So we're going to get right to it, I think.
What are you bringing us this week?
So this week's episode is about Daniel LaPlante and his crimes.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to tell you a story that's different from what you've heard, if you have heard of this case, because most of what is out there is incorrect.
Oh, I love when we find that out.
That includes everything that you may have seen on TV. So if you've seen an episode that has focused on this case, a lot of what's said in there, even if you're hearing it straight from detectives' mouths, it's not right.
Okay.
I don't want to give anything away just yet, but let's start.
Okay.
Daniel LaPlante was born May 15th, 1970 in Townsend, Massachusetts. A lot of our stories are from Massachusetts, I realized, or we end up there somehow.
We end up there. Well, so this isn't that old of a story. For some reason, I thought it was going to be older.
No, it's not. It's not that old. Yeah. Well, actually, it is kind of old because it happens when I was born.
So he was a young offender or whatever we're going to call it.
Yes. So Townsend is bordered by New Hampshire, and it's a small rural town with just over 9,000 residents today, I believe. Before Daniel was born, his mother, Elaine, was married to a man named Claude LaPlante. They had a daughter together, Angela, and a son, Stephen. Daniel was the third born and the product of an affair with one of Claude's co-workers, a man named Willie Moore.
Oh, okay.
So hold on for a second because it does get a little bit confusing.
Did the dad know it was an affair?
Not yet.
Okay.
So Elaine gets pregnant and gives birth to Daniel. It becomes pretty clear early on that Daniel looks different from his siblings, and Claude confronts Elaine, and she confesses that she had an affair and that Daniel is not his biological son.
Okay.
Almost every version of the story out there will tell you that Daniel's biological father sexually abused him.
Okay.
That is not true. Daniel never lived with his biological father. Claude, however, took out his frustrations on Daniel and did verbally and physically abuse him.
Okay, I could see that being more realistic.
Right. Sexual abuse is something in question because Claude ended up being a pretty bad guy. He was a criminal and a rapist.
Okay.
When Daniel was 2 years old, he was facing a rape charge. And with what comes to be later on, you kind of put 2 and 2 together that there is a high possibility that Claude may have been sexually abusing Daniel.
Okay.
And at a young age, possibly as early as 2 years old.
Oh my God.
But there's no evidence to it. It's just a talking point when you look into this story. It's brought up, as an excuse for who he came to be because immediately you're told he was sexually abused.
Okay.
But we don't know that for sure. But it is something to keep in mind. The marriage did continue for some time after this, with them even having another baby, Matthew, but the relationship was not good. Claude never got over what happened with Daniel, and they did end up divorcing.
Okay, and she, I would think, would have a hard time getting over the fact that you're married to a rapist.
Well, she stayed
right.
during a rape charge, so I don't know. Now, Elaine is a single mother of 4, but at some point she meets another man, David Moore. David happens to be Willie Moore's brother.
Oh, okay. She keeps it in the family.
Elaine and David get married when Daniel is around 7 years old. So his biological uncle is now his stepfather.
Ooh, you can't make this stuff up.
Some say that Daniel was also sexually abused by David, but that is not true.
Okay.
By all accounts, his stepfather/uncle was a very nice guy, just indifferent.
Okay.
Dan had already been through so much with his father, well, the only father he had ever known up to that point, so he was already troubled.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing David did added to Daniel's issues that I can tell, other than being kind of absent. And Willie was never a father figure to Daniel at all.
Okay.
In fact, and what is a little fucked up, Daniel didn't know any of this until much later.
He didn't know that it was his uncle and dad and all that?
He didn't know any of this.
Okay.
He thought Claude was his real father.
Okay.
Which probably made the abuse that much harder to cope with, being the only child being beaten by who you thought is your real father.
And you're like, why does my dad not like me as
Right.
much as he likes the other children? Yeah.
But despite all the male figures in his life seemingly failing him, Elaine, on the other hand, doted on Daniel.
Okay.
But I don't think that helped him along the way, and we'll get to that conversation. We've seen this a few times with certain types of people.
Right. She's just trying to make up for the lack
Probably.
of attention from men.
True. Anyway, after all this, Daniel grew up with his brothers at 22 Elm Street in Townsend. His sister Angela did not live with him. So Daniel had a troubled, confusing, unhappy childhood after his initial abuse, and he developed a personality disorder. Another reason why I think he may have been sexually assaulted.
Yeah, it does fit.
That child went through quite a bit at a very tender, early age,
Mm-hmm.
and that can happen. You
Yes.
split. He struggled in school, both with learning and socially. He had dyslexia. By the age of 13, he was doing the typical things we see with individuals who turn into serial killers.
Oh, no. The trifecta.
He was starting fires, stealing from stores, getting into fights, torturing and killing animals.
Ugh.
He would find and keep stray cats in a shed in his backyard.
Oh, my God.
He had a disturbing obsession with the Nazis. He carried around a book with him called The Vigilante's Handbook,
Okay.
which I guess a lot of kids had at the time. I looked it up. It's from the 1980s, but it just added to the other things he was doing and his other interests. So the signs were there. His family should have sought help for him, but it was actually his teachers who did.
Okay.
Due to his odd, sometimes scary behavior, his appearance, and lack of hygiene, he was referred to a psychiatrist by his school. And he was diagnosed with hyperactivity disorder.
Okay, that's not all that's going on, but hyperactivity does not make you collect cats and torture animals.
No, it doesn't. Poor kitties.
I know.
And again, a story perpetuated by a broken phone chain or just bad journalism over the years. It has been widely reported that his psychologist was sexually abusing him and that it went on for over a year. And you know me, I've done many episodes at this point about sexual abuse, child abuse.
Yeah, it seems to be a theme for you.
The point is we don't shy away from those types of accusations, but this has never been corroborated. So take what you want of that. It just begs the question, though, if there was not sexual abuse, was Daniel just a bad egg?
Right. Like Shelley Notek, she was just a bad egg.
That's
from the
true.
get-go.
Was he born this way?
Yeah.
Psychologists later on will say yes, that he was born this way and the abuse at an early age just intensified what was already there.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing anyone could have done to turn him around. Now, we don't know what happened in those years that he was physically abused and to what level. Even if there is no sexual aspect, maybe it was head trauma. We don't
Yeah,
know.
possible.
There's always that possibility. I mean, these kids fall on their heads every second of the day when they're
Little, yes.
little and learning to just sit.
Their heads are so big, it just pulls them down.
I know.
My kids both like hit their heads at some point within the first 3 years of life.
My daughter was constantly bonking her head on something. Either way, Daniel showed disturbing signs from a very young age, and they weren't addressed in any way until it was way too late. Mentally, he was already psychopath status.
Oh, no. So young to be there.
I know. It's scary. He attended St. Bernard's High School in Fitchburg as a teenager. I think locals call it St. Bernard's.
Okay.
Classmates thought he was weird and creepy. Even though he played football and ran track, he was a loner and not very friendly. He often went to school in dirty clothes, wearing the same clothes again and again. He smelled pretty bad. Most students just tried to avoid him.
Yeah.
When not in school, he spent his time in the woods alone. He preferred being alone.
Yeah, these are big red flags.
And with this escalating disturbing behavior, it was no surprise when he turned to more intimate crimes. At 15 years old, he began breaking into homes. At first, he just stole valuables, but soon he started playing mind games with the residents.
Okay.
He began leaving things behind and moving things around in his neighbors' homes to psychologically torment them.
Wow.
He had been caught a few times and police were aware of him. But in 1986, at the age of 16, he took things up a notch.
Okay.
Over the course of eight and a half months that year, he terrorized the Bowen family at 93 Lawrence Street in Pepperell, the town just east of Townsend. This home backed up to the woods. First, a little bit about this family. It was a father and 3 daughters. The father was Frank Bowen. Then we have Kathy, Tina, and Karen. Kathy was 16, Tina was 15, and Karen is 9. Tina and Karen were biological sisters, and Kathy, the oldest, was adopted and hadn't been with the family the whole time. She was actually a girl that Tina had met at school. I'm not sure of the entire reason behind this, but her parents moved to Tennessee and Frank officially adopted her.
Okay.
The girls also had an older sister, Darlene, who did not live at the home. She was a half-sister from Frank's first marriage, and she was in her 20s.
Okay.
Sadly, the 2 biological sisters' mother, Ruth, had passed away earlier that year from cancer. Everyone was still grieving. Frank had to work long hours to take care of everything, so he was barely home.
Yeah.
I guess he was a bus driver.
Okay.
So it was a sensitive time. Now, something I have to mention when it comes to this part of the story, this is where a lot of the misinformation is.
Okay.
What happened sort of took on a mind of its own. Many of the details out there are simply not true,
Okay.
or they're just jumbled up in other parts of the story. It became somewhat of an urban legend. So I'll try to give you what is known to be true, as well as some things that may have happened, but I couldn't 100% confirm it.
Okay.
The reason for this case's popularity in the true crime world is that it not only includes a horrific crime, which I'll come to later, but it started with something terrifying, and that is frogging. If you don't know what that is, it's when someone is living in your home without your knowledge.
Right.
Speaking of the movie Urban Legend, I still look in my backseat for a human being
I
that
do
shouldn't
too.
be there.
Oh my God, me too.
But I have the same fear in my home. And there's something that's even more frightening about the thought of someone hiding in spaces in your home for an extended period of time.
And watching you. And,
Yes. And that is the difference between frogging and like squatting.
Okay.
Squatting happens when a home or a building is not currently occupied, and in some states it's legal.
Right.
Frogging is staying at a home while the homeowners or tenants are currently living there.
Yeah. And this came up in Hinterkaifeck. They wondered if there was someone doing that. Remember?
Right. Yeah, I do remember.
And I think I know where you're going with this story. I've heard pieces of it, and I feel like it's been done in movies and such.
I think a lot of different authors and movies have
Use this as
taken this up,
inspiration.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, Daniel chooses this home, this
Okay.
family. Daniel had a way of getting in and out of the house for months. He eventually became known as the boy in the walls.
Right.
He wasn't actually living in the walls, though, as many believe.
I always wonder how the walls were that thick.
No, they weren't. There wasn't enough space. This was
Yes.
a normal residential home with like, what is it, like 6 inches?
Mm-hmm.
And that's including all the wood and the
Right,
drywall.
yeah,
Like
people
there's no
can't fit there.
space to walk. You
Mhm.
have 2x4s in the middle.
Yes.
But he did have a hiding spot in the basement
Okay.
and would move about the place while the family was out of the house, or move around in areas when they were in other parts of the home.
Mm-hmm.
The real torment started one day when the girls were trying to contact their deceased mother using a Ouija board.
Oh, no.
Some say that he was trying to impersonate their mother.
Mm-hmm.
The girls heard knocking on the walls as they were asking their questions.
Okay.
It's more likely that he was just knocking on the walls because he was planning to fuck with them in some way, and it just happened to coincide with their little session because where he was, he wouldn't have been able to hear what they were doing.
Okay.
Just very bizarre, creepy timing.
Right.
But the girls did think it was their mother. And Kathy said that after the seance, she went downstairs and saw a figure of someone sitting at the kitchen table.
Ooh, creepy.
And she thought it was Ruth. The mother ran back upstairs to tell her sisters, and they all ran down, and the figure was gone.
And it was probably Daniel just sitting there.
He has a habit of sitting at kitchen tables.
Okay.
After this, other things started to happen in the home. TV channels would change while they were watching a show, or the volume would go up and down.
So they're thinking the house is haunted.
Mm-hmm. Items were rearranged. Milk in the fridge was being consumed.
Okay, those can't drink milk.
Glasses of alcohol would be left out randomly, or alcohol bottles were emptied and put back.
Okay.
Messages were written on the walls in shaving foam.
Oh, that's so creepy.
They would come downstairs to the kitchen table being a mess. Furniture would be moved around.
You would feel like you were going crazy.
I know. The girls brought this up to their father, telling him that they think it's the mother.
Mm-hmm.
He just thought it was their way of grieving and didn't put much thought into it, dismissing their claims.
No.
He didn't think they were necessarily lying, but maybe just playing jokes on each other.
Okay.
He was never there to witness any of it.
And who automatically thinks there's someone in your house?
You don't.
Like your mind wouldn't go there first ever. Except for now because we do true crime and that will be the first place my mind goes.
I even check my place. Like I go into every corner sometimes at night. If I hear a noise, I face my fears and I get up and I check every single place in my house.
I mean, I have a basement that I have a lock on so nobody can come up it, but that creeps me out. I don't think I could go in my basement in the middle of the night. Hopefully there's nobody squatting down there. I'll make Drew go down there for me.
Yeah, you should. But Kathy, the oldest, wasn't doing well. It was all getting to her.
Yeah.
She was on the verge of going to therapy. It really, really messed with her sanity.
Mm-hmm.
But before she could go, she found out why and how all of this had been happening.
Okay.
On December 8th, 1986, Kathy and Tina got home from work. They worked after school or something. I'm not sure where. And I'm not sure where Karen was at the time, but they came home to a messed up house. They discovered piss in one of the bathtubs.
Ew.
There were messages on the wall and shaving foam. One said, "Come and find me. I'm in your room."
Ew. Creepy.
There was a large butcher knife pinned into a family photograph.
Oh my God.
In the entry, and the knife was going through Tina's face. Immediately, they panicked and called their father to come home. I'm not sure why they didn't call the police first. You would think that would be the first option, but they are teenage girls.
Right.
And they probably felt like calling them wouldn't do anything because they had called the police a few times before.
With all the other stuff going on?
Right.
Okay.
And no one ever believed them.
Mm-hmm.
But Frank rushes home. He thinks the girls have just taken it all too far. He already thought everyone needed therapy because to him, they proved over the last year that they weren't coping with their mother's death and were acting out.
Right.
But the girls were frantic, so Frank searched the home, at first to put their mind at ease. Meanwhile, the girls are yelling at him that it wasn't them, someone's in our house, we promise it wasn't us.
Right.
Frank is thinking that they just want him to play along, so he kind of jokingly is going through the house saying, "I'm going to find him. I'm going to find you."
Uh-huh.
And while searching, he opens up a closet door, and boom,
there
Daniel. His face was painted, and he was wearing a large, oversized coat of sorts. Different sources say different things about this coat.
His face was painted?
Painted.
Like black, so he could be in the shadows?
People say like war paint.
Ooh, weird.
And his hair was styled up in a mohawk.
Oh, okay.
He had a large wrench in his hand.
Mm.
And this is a big detail of the story that has changed. Most versions, if not literally all of them, say it was an axe.
Oh, okay.
Which of course is much scarier.
Yes.
But it was not an axe.
But a wrench can do some damage too.
Exactly. Blunt force trauma. It's scary.
Yes.
But anyway, Frank's first thought was not to be scared. He was shocked, but he thought it was someone the girls knew. It was a young teenage boy.
So he's like, "Oh, you're playing a prank on me."
So he yells to the girls in kind of an unserious tone, "I found him. I found the intruder."
Okay.
But pretty quickly he realized, oh, this is not someone the girls know. Because I'm pretty sure just the way Daniel was looking at him.
He looked crazy as fuck. And he's like,
right.
"Oh, my girls wouldn't hang out with this guy."
Daniel ordered and chased them into an upstairs room and made them kneel on the ground.
Oh, no.
He kind of held them hostage for a few minutes like that. And then he closed the door. They barricaded the door after he closed it. He left at some point. They could hear him rummaging through the house.
Ugh.
Not quite sure what he was doing. So Tina took the opportunity and she escaped through the window. She ran to a neighbor's house and they called the cops.
Okay.
When the police showed up, they didn't find Daniel.
Yeah, he's running off in the woods.
They searched everywhere, inside and out, the woods, the road. In one of the documentaries, a cop does say that he did find a hatchet outside of one of the doors.
Okay.
So maybe that's why it
The
turned
axe.
into that he had it in his hand. Or maybe he was planning on using it. Maybe it was part of whatever he was doing. But
Yeah.
when he was found, it was just the wrench. But at this point, the police are kind of fed up with this family and all the calls to the property. So after they felt like they've covered all grounds, they left.
So they don't do their job again.
Well, no, they did take it seriously,
Okay.
considering now that Frank's involved.
Right.
You know, Frank is like, this happened to me. This happened to all of us.
I wasn't making this up.
But it was nighttime and there's no way to find anybody in the woods.
Oh, that's so
At
scary. And then the cops leave and
Yes. Well, the family, understandably, did not want to stay there after that. So
Good,
they ended
yeah.
up going to a hotel in Fitchburg.
okay. Yeah, I couldn't sleep there.
No way.
Maybe ever.
2 days later, Frank went back to the home to grab some things. And as he approached the house, he saw a light on in the upstairs bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And a man was standing there.
Oh, no.
He just immediately called the cops.
Yes.
He wasn't about to deal with that. One cop arrived within 10 minutes. This was Officer Stephen Benzinson. He walked around the home and didn't see any tracks. There was snow on the ground, so he should have.
Right.
When the police left 2 days before, all of the doors were locked. So if someone was in that house, that means they were there when the home was searched and never left, or did leave but came back before the snowfall and was still inside.
Okay.
Within the first few seconds of walking into the home, he knew he needed backup.
Uh-oh.
The first thing he saw was the picture in the entry with the knife in it. And on that picture was now a message that said, "I'm still here, come find me."
Oh, my God. This is like a literal horror movie.
I know. Looking down the hall, there was another picture with a knife with another message that said, "I'm going to kill you."
Oh, my God.
He left the house until more cops arrived. They searched everywhere they did before and again found nothing. But this time in the basement, Officer Benzinson took a closer look at things. When he went down there, he just had a feeling
Yeah.
that someone was down there. He noticed that all of the pipes in the basement that led to the upstairs bathroom disappeared behind a wall.
Okay.
This was an unfinished basement. So this was just a section of wall that covered the unsightly collection of pipes in one corner. And it wasn't professionally done. It was just a large piece of like painted wood that was kind of pushed up into this area. And there was a washing machine in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 7-inch gap behind this false wall. He pulled the board back some and started feeling around and felt what ended up being a huge pile of clothes,
Okay.
which doesn't make sense to be behind this wall. That's not where you put your dirty laundry.
No.
So he started moving some of the clothes around and ended up grabbing what felt like a human arm.
Ugh. It's such a horror movie.
He looked down and he saw black hair.
Oh, God.
I would scream.
Yeah.
I would scream.
I don't think I'd ever sleep again.
Sure enough, it was Daniel hiding underneath all these clothes.
Oh, my God.
He told him to put his hands up and then yanked him out of there. Of course, it was a minute before they found out that it was 16-year-old Daniel LaPlante.
Wow.
Turns out there is a reason Daniel chose this home, this family. It was because of 15-year-old Tina Bowen.
Okay.
Daniel was obsessed with Tina.
Okay.
One day, Tina got a phone call. It was Daniel. She didn't know him,
Mm-hmm.
but he knew about her, and he was a friend of a friend and described himself as a young, athletic, blue-eyed, blonde jock.
Okay.
She was a bit boy crazy at 15 and took a liking to him on the phone. They chatted for a couple of months.
Oh, wow.
One story is that he convinced her to go on a date with him, and that is how she finds out he's not who he says he is. Daniel has dark hair, dark eyes.
Mm-hmm.
As that story goes, she meets up with him, finds out that he's not a blonde jock. She still entertains him just to be nice, but cuts everything off after that.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Turner, author of The Boy in the Walls, tells a different story.
Okay.
And he had direct contact with everyone involved. So I'm going to take his word for it. Now, this
Okay.
book isn't published yet, actually. It is finished. It just hasn't been published yet. It's in the works. I don't know the date. So keep an eye out for it.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be interested to see what details I don't even have access to right now.
Right.
No
you just
one
had
does.
the teasers or whatever.
We might have to do a redo. I don't know. Anyway, so a lot of these details were from interviews that he's done
Okay.
with what he has collected from talking to nearly over 100 people multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
including the Bowen family and the Bowen girls. He said that she had been talking to him on the phone, but she met him at an open school event at her school.
Okay.
She was just standing there talking to other people, and she gets a tap on the shoulder. She turns around to see this boy, and he says something like, "It's me. I'm Danny, the boy you've been talking to."
Okay. And she's like, what?
She takes him in. This disheveled boy, greasy black hair, a black leather jacket, face is riddled with acne. But Tina was a nice girl. So she tried to give him a chance.
Okay.
I guess he was pretty fit, though.
No, if he's
so
athletic.
maybe that's why.
Yeah.
You know. Either way, she went on 2 dates with him, but it wasn't a match, and she put an end to it. Part of the reason she cut off communication with him was because he was just really morbid.
Yeah, I can imagine.
He showed an unusual and disturbing interest in the details of her mother's death. He asked specific questions about how much she suffered.
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be weird.
But really, she just didn't like him like that. And she ended it because she felt bad for leading him on.
He probably had a vibe about him too. You know,
yeah.
Us as women, we can just tell like something's not right here.
Right. I just watched, The Woman of the Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I get is how he can shift. And there's just that vibe when his face goes cold and
you just know all of a sudden this is
a bad dude.
Good anymore. Yeah.
There is one thing I can't confirm. I found one source that said Frank was actually part of that second date, her father.
Okay.
I guess he drove him and her to her aunt's house for some kind of Easter get together. And it was after that Tina broke things off. But then I've also read that Frank has never met him. So to be honest, I'm not sure what the facts are there, but I kind of feel like he hasn't, only because Frank nor any of the girls recognized him that night. So as a result of this rejection, Daniel started messing with her and her family 8.5 months before her dad discovered him in the closet.
Wow.
So this is going on for a long time.
What torture.
But it only really intensified during those last several weeks before he was discovered. The story told by many is that Daniel was living there in the walls of the home.
It's more like a wall.
One wall. One false wall. But he really wasn't even living there. He wasn't living there.
He hid there.
He was mostly in the home while people were gone, or when it was just the girls. Typically, he would leave once Frank came home, which was pretty late. And if he did stay the night, I don't know, for the thrill of it, he would tell his parents that he was staying at a friend's house.
Okay.
So, because a lot of people bring up the question, well, wouldn't his parents
notice?
know?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't they say he's missing? That's a long time to be gone. And it, kids can get away with stuff when they're teenagers.
Yeah.
And he wasn't there every day. There would be weeks when he wouldn't be there.
Okay.
Because the girls do remember like stretches of weeks when nothing would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, it's just whenever he felt like going back. But overall, it lasted over this kind of 8.5 month period. And he just ramped up his game towards the end.
Yeah, I started going super crazy and probably would have escalated to hurting one of them. Sounds like.
Yes, I think so. So how did he get in and out? Because that was one of my questions.
Yes.
He just walked in.
Back in the day, they left the front doors.
They didn't lock the doors. Yeah. He just walked right in the front door. And he had been around them so much, he now knew their schedules.
Yeah.
So he knew when no one would be home and
right.
when he could get in and out. So it's as simple as that.
Lock your doors.
That's crazy. To start it all off, his torment wasn't too crazy. Little things started going missing. Girls just blamed each other. Lights would be on in rooms that were not on previously and no one had been in that room.
Mm-hmm.
They'd hear weird noises. They noticed the alcohol being consumed.
Right.
Music would randomly turn on in another room or seem to be coming like from outside of the home but near where they were. All the things I mentioned before started happening. These are all things, if you think of them individually, are just really annoyances and you're going to like overlook them.
Right.
Like, oh, that's weird. Why'd that happen?
Yes.
But you're not thinking
there's
someone's in your house.
And it worked out perfectly for him because they're also thinking it's like their mother, this haunting, because it sounds just like what we hear when people say their house is haunted.
Right.
Maybe a lot of haunted houses just have froggers.
Don't say that. That's so creepy. I literally, when I say I check my house, I go into my daughter's closet and I move shit around on the ground.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know where a hiding spot is and that's where I look.
Mm-hmm.
Creepy.
I'd rather be haunted any day.
So everything that was happening, they did end up attributing it to, it's their deceased mother trying to contact them. That was until more sinister things started happening. One day, their mother's wedding dress was laid out on the bed.
Ooh.
It caused the girls to get in a fight. Like they were blaming each other. Like, I can't believe you brought that out. And you may come upon a story from someone else who says that Daniel, when he was originally found,
was wearing it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Which would have been really creepy.
That's
so you
like
can see
psycho Norman Bates stuff.
Exactly. That did not happen, but he did put it on the bed. Another day, Tina woke up covered in crumbs.
Ooh.
She had a sandwich on the table from the night before, and she was covered in crumbs from it. That's
super
freak me
creepy.
out.
He was standing there eating a sandwich right over her.
Just like sprinkling crumbs over her sleeping body.
And watching her like, ew.
I know.
That's so creepy.
I don't know if I would think it was someone who did. I might think I was sleepwalking and did it to myself, but still very
I don't
creepy.
know how I would explain that if I just woke up with food crumbs.
It was just all really weird, messed up things just to fuck with them.
Which he enjoyed.
Yeah. One day, which I would not blame on a ghost, he left a trail of pennies from the upstairs leading down into the basement.
What? Yeah.
I would scream if I saw that.
I would know somebody had to do that. That's
Right.
not like a ghost thing for
But
sure.
then again, that's also something you would blame your sisters for.
If they were, used to pranking each other.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all in this weird time. They lost their mother.
Yeah.
It changes you when you lose someone like that. So
They just think they're all fucking with each other.
Yeah.
And you would not automatically think there's someone else in the house for sure. You would assume it's your sister being
this
dumb.
reminds me of the corn. So
Yeah.
this is a weird, little side story. So me and my daughter, when we went to that pumpkin patch, we brought home corn stalks.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to bring them home, and she put them on our TV stand. So it's like 3 feet up. And for 2 days in a row, I'm here alone. Kendra saw these, but
Yeah.
I would walk out into my living room, and like 6 feet away from where these little pieces of corn are up on the TV stand, there would be a single kernel
Yeah.
on the floor. The first time I'm like, oh, I just, must have dropped that. And I threw it away. And then I walked out like a few hours later, another single kernel in the exact same place on the floor. And it happened again and again. I think I have 6 now.
Yeah.
It thankfully has stopped, but I have no explanation for that. And I looked around the corn on my TV stand, and there's no other kernels just sitting there. It's just
Weird.
I don't know what corn symbolizes. Maybe I need to look
You
that
got
up.
a total of 6 plus the one you threw away, so 7.
7. Yeah, 7. I don't know.
It's the universe.
I have no explanation.
Yeah,
So
it's weird.
I have checked this house, so I don't think it's someone in here.
No, I don't think you have anyone living here. Hello.
Although we've had some spooky stuff here. Anyway, when they were held hostage that day, Tina didn't recognize him either.
Oh, really? Okay.
It had been 8 months.
And he had a mohawk and paint.
He had paint
Yeah.
and stuff. So, and they didn't go to the same school.
Oh, okay.
So she never saw him again. They didn't have the same group of friends. They never ran into each other. She just assumed that he was fine with the way it ended too and moved on. Little did she know, it just made him obsess
She didn't
over
know.
her.
Yeah, he was a psychopath.
I was confused about why he ended up calling her in the first place. I mean, I guess this was the 80s. Nowadays, or even when I was older in the 90s, I don't think I would have accepted a random boy calling me and being like, yeah, let me talk to you forever. Would you have?
I did.
Oh.
No, it was through a friend, though. I don't know how he called her.
But did you know who he was, though?
I had a friend who knew him. He was from another
okay.
school in another town. And she's like, he's really cute. His name is Mark. And we did like a 3-way call. And then she was like, I got to go to bed. And then me and him ended up talking. And we talked multiple times over several months. But I never met him, I don't think. I'm trying to think. Maybe I met him one time, like several months later, but like we had a little flirtation going on. So
Okay.
I could see it and that was probably, that was 90s. I was like 14.
It's no different than what people are doing online today.
It is. And they can catfish you just the same.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, like I said, Tina was boy crazy, and she was giving out her number left and right to boys. And one of these boys knew Daniel, and he's like, this girl's real cute. And this guy gave Daniel her number.
Yeah.
That's how he ended up calling her.
And I'm sure he came across maybe charming at first. Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah. Another false bit of the story that's out there is that they did go to the same school, and that after she went on a date with him, her friends told her that he was up for rape charges, and that's why she cut things off. I already said they don't go to the same school, and she didn't know about any rape charges, but the rape charges were actually true.
So he was up for rape?
He was awaiting sentencing for sexual assault.
That's scary.
Was charged and acquitted of another rape charge of a 14-year-old girl named Shannon, but there wasn't enough evidence, I guess.
There never is enough evidence, right?
Turns out Daniel did this often at a
shit.
young age. He had a friend who had an attic, and when girls came over, I don't know, somehow Daniel would get them to go up there with him, and he would rape them or attempt to. And
horrible.
there's several girls who can attest to this. Just a bad seed.
Yeah.
He is a psychopath.
Yes.
And at some point in this whole, I don't know, story, if you come upon it, at some point the Bowens became the Andrews. So Tina is a girl named Annie Andrews. So if you listen to the same story and they're different names, for some reason their names got changed at some point.
I don't understand how this kind of stuff happens. We see this a lot when we research cases.
And her adopted sister like disappears from the story altogether. So you'll hear the story told with a dad and 2 daughters when there's 3. It's like
telephone.
I mean, I think it has to do with media in the beginning, you know, bad journalism.
Yes.
Just taking little bits and pieces and throwing it out there. And then that gets posted. And maybe the true version does get posted somewhere and then just mixes all together and you don't know what's what. It's a mess. It's odd, though, because the story alone is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, you do not need to embellish at all.
No.
It's, horrific already.
So Daniel was arrested on December 8th, 1986. The cop who booked him just knew Daniel was not good.
Yeah.
He took multiple mugshots of Daniel. Typically, you take 2 of a teenager, but he was like, I have to take more. I know I'm going to see this kid again.
Okay.
Being that he was 16 years old, he was sent to Juvenile Detention Center. There, he stayed for 10 months until October of 1987.
They're going to let him out?
Well, they do. He wasn't released on good behavior or anything like that. He was actually still awaiting sentencing, which was scheduled for December 11th, 1987. It's taking a long time because it was such an odd crime and because of these sexual assaults prior, just more thought had to go in.
Yeah, what do you even charge him with?
Yeah.
Trespassing? That's not enough.
And he was still underage, but his crimes were not normal petty theft of a teenager. So it seems like the plan was to hold him as long as possible there so that he could be tried as an adult.
That's smart and kept off the streets.
Right. But the problem is he wasn't eligible for bail as a teenager. But once the judge decided that he was going to be tried as an adult, it made him eligible for bail.
Oh, no.
So his mother ended up remortgaging her home to afford this $10,000 bail, and he was released to her.
I don't know what I would do in that situation if I had a creepy kid like that. I don't know that I would even want them home with me.
She doesn't.
She doesn't believe it, probably.
No, she doesn't. You know, she's one of those moms that thinks the sunshine
like Kenneth
shines out of his asshole.
Yeah, Kenneth McDuff's mom.
Yep.
She was there all the time. You got to be realistic with your kids. You got to know.
But she was also not super controlling of him either. Like, she doted on him, but she respected his space, you know, and like.
But his space is attacking other women. Like.
Exactly.
You need to control him a little bit.
Too much space. But once out, Daniel went right back to burglarizing, stealing whatever he wanted. Some places it was just electronics and like knickknacks. Other places it was money and guns. He was still doing his signature thing of moving things around just to unnerve the occupants of that home. He just wanted them to know that someone had been there.
Yeah, drive you crazy.
One of the homes he stole items from, weird things to steal, I don't know, maybe to sell, was 2 cable TV boxes and remote controls.
That's just to torment them because they don't have their remote control or their cable.
But those actually would end up becoming evidence because Daniel was about to commit the worst crime ever.
Oh, no.
This crime involved the Gustafsons at 3 Saunders Road in Townsend.
Okay.
The Gustafsons included Andrew and Priscilla and their 2 children, Abigail, who went by Abby, and William, who they called Billy.
Okay.
Andrew was 36, Priscilla was 33, Abigail was 7, nearly 8, and Billy was 5.
Okay.
Andrew and Priscilla had been married for 12 years. They were a happy, loving couple. The kids were adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew was a lawyer and Priscilla was a nursery school teacher. And Priscilla was also pregnant with their 3rd child.
Okay.
Daniel lived about a mile away from the Gustafsons. Their homes were connected by a stretch of woods.
Don't live by the woods.
He loved those woods. And when he came upon the Gustafson home, there was something he liked about it. He went back multiple times. One of these times, he was surprised by Priscilla coming home with Billy. This was around 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday, December 1st, 1987, less than 2 months after he got out on bail.
Shit.
Instead of running, Daniel confronted Priscilla and decided to do something horrific.
Wow.
He forced Priscilla and Billy into the master bedroom with a gun that he had stolen from his stepfather. He tied Priscilla to the bed with pantyhose and gagged her with one of his socks.
Ew.
He then took little Billy to the upstairs bathroom, filled up the tub with water, not all the way, just enough. He put Billy in the tub and then drowned him by stepping on him with his foot.
Oh my God.
If Priscilla could hear any of this,
Oh my God.
I can't imagine the terror for her little boy.
You know, he was fighting. He was 5 years old.
I know. Oh my God. Oh. To be so helpless, to not be able to save your child from this monster.
And you just walk in your house and it's just, you don't even recognize what's happening to you at that point. It's happening so fast. There's just someone there with a gun that says, get in your room. Like,
yeah, poor baby.
Oh my God.
But after he was done with Billy, he then goes back to Priscilla in the room and rapes her.
Yeah.
And after he was done assaulting her, he shot her twice, both times in the head, killing her.
Oh my God.
I'm not sure how long he was in the home, but just as he was leaving, literally as he was about to run away from the crime scene, little Abigail came home from school. And so he did the same to her. He took her to another bathroom on the first floor, filled up the tub just enough, and drowned her the same way.
Oh my God. And then the dad has to come home to this?
Yeah. After that, Daniel just left and went on to attend his niece's birthday party.
Like a true psycho.
Yep. Andrew had called home at some point that afternoon. He was excited because he had just closed a really big real estate deal. In exchange for legal services, he was given stake of ownership in a hotel.
Okay.
So moving up. He wanted to get them a babysitter and go celebrate with dinner. When she didn't answer after trying several times, he was worried and rushed home. When he got there, the house was dark, eerily quiet. Priscilla's car was in the driveway. Inside, he called out for them, but got no response. He went upstairs to the bedroom and found Priscilla.
Oh my God.
She was face down on the bed with a pillow on top of her head.
Yeah.
Blood. He was horrified and shocked. You know, all the things.
Yeah.
He ran and called the cops immediately. A lot of people don't understand how he didn't look for his children.
He was in shock.
They could have still been alive, but he thought the worst. He couldn't stomach it. Like, he was afraid to find them dead. He didn't want to see them dead.
Yeah.
Because they didn't answer him either when he was calling out names.
And he sees his wife and he know, like, yeah, you would assume.
I would look, though, because children hide.
True.
And they don't know who's coming in the home after they experience something like that.
We just don't know what we're going to do. He's in shock.
Exactly.
He just saw his wife horrifically murdered. Like,
yes.
I don't know what I would do.
No one knows.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It was a shocking crime.
Yes.
It was a small community.
And this guy was literally locked away. They were trying to keep him. And then his fucking mom bails him out. There's too many stories of these guys doing shit on bail.
I know. Of course, there's the argument of whether or not Daniel decided at the moment to do what he did, or if he at least had the intention of killing Priscilla that day. And this is because he had a gun and bullets.
Okay.
Well, I have that with you if you don't plan on using it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to agree either way. I mean, unfortunately, we live in America and people like guns and carrying them everywhere, especially a teenage boy, especially if he just stole them. Like,
he thinks it's cool.
His little pride and joy. I kind of feel like it was something he decided on at that moment, only because
they came in. He wasn't expecting them to be there.
And he didn't have any sort of plan after that. He was very messy with the evidence.
Yeah.
He was out on bail. If he was planning on killing someone, I think that he would have taken more care to make sure the evidence didn't point to him.
I think he was just there fucking around in the house like he had been, and they surprised him, and then he did that.
Yeah. I guess we'll never know. Only he knows. And one other person, maybe, that is no longer here, which I'll come to. Let's see if you guys remember I said that.
Okay.
Maybe his intention was to rape her. After being in juvenile detention for 10 months, he needed that high or whatever. He was a rapist already.
Right.
But it is possible he spent his time away thinking about what his next step would be, and maybe that was murder.
Right.
And after what he did to this family, if he was smart enough and took care in not leaving evidence to be caught, or maybe did it in another town,
he
could have gone to become a notorious serial killer. Like, he was
definitely on the
crazy.
path. Yeah.
You just don't kill children in that way without being
ruthless.
sick. And it makes you wonder if it was his first murder, because he did it pretty quickly and he killed children in a torturous way.
Well, he'd already been killing animals in torturous ways. And I don't know, it's not that much harder when you've become so hardened to killing and seeing suffering animals.
I know, but he could have made it quick and shot them. He had a gun.
True.
He chose
the drowning
to
is
torture
weird.
them.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to this, though. Now, even though it was a massive escalation from frogging and stalking, the cop that booked Daniel for that, Thomas Lane, immediately thought that he was responsible for this triple homicide.
Yeah, it's a small town. Like, there's not that many psychos running around.
True.
And this guy just got out. I mean, why would you not think it was maybe him?
Well, Thomas Lane was actually in Pepperell, so it was in a different town. And this happened in Townsend. So he heard about it and was like, oh,
I know a guy.
I know a guy
who looked crazy. I took so many mugshots because he looked evil, probably.
He knew that Daniel would escalate to something like this.
They always do.
It was a matter of time. So he immediately brings up Daniel LaPlante as a possible suspect, especially knowing that he was recently out on bail. Of course, they had to rule out Andrew first. He had the alibi of work.
Yeah.
There was one other bad guy suspect in the area, but his alibi was confirmed too.
Okay. Yeah, they would look at the dad first, I'm sure.
Yeah. So their focus was solely on Daniel. Hearing of the recent burglaries the family experienced and odd other things like alcohol being left out, also a signature of Daniel's, they just knew it was him.
Okay.
They tried tracking him down for a bit without any luck. They couldn't locate him for a while until they found out that he was at the library.
Okay.
They confronted him at the library and took him in for questioning. Of course, he denied having any involvement, said that he had been at a birthday party. And with nothing to hold him on other than suspicion, they had to let him go. Meanwhile, they're busy searching for evidence and did find some things. First off, Daniel had left a pornographic magazine behind. He also left 2 glasses of wine on the kitchen table. He also left open, unused condoms, some of them cut. No one knows exactly why. I've listened to people discuss this, and no one seems to have a theory, but I would assume that he was starting his taunting stage at their home.
Yeah.
Before Priscilla came and surprised him. Maybe this time with the goal of causing drama between the couple.
Yes.
Yeah. Whoever found it first would accuse the other one of cheating.
Yep, sounds like it.
That's what I immediately thought of. Maybe raping her, though, was part of it, and leaving the evidence behind as a way to discredit her. If she told her husband, I was raped.
He's like,
so
then
that
why
he
was
wouldn't
there
believe
wine?
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to put doubt in his mind. Because he also left behind his jacket. That's real physical evidence. But that could have just been because he was surprised by the kids there too and literally forgot it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of unanswered questions with that stuff.
Yeah.
Outside of the home, they found a pillow laying on the ground from the bed Priscilla was murdered in. They called in search dogs, and the dogs found a wet flannel shirt and wet gloves in the woods.
Okay.
Picking up a scent from those, the search dogs led police through the woods until they came out the other side, leading them right to Daniel LaPlante's home.
Oh, okay. Ding, 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 ding.
Exactly. They got a search warrant for the home, and in his bedroom, they found a pair of wet socks.
Mm-hmm.
On one of those socks was blonde hair, which was later tied to Abigail. They also found bullets and spent shell casings, and those matched the rifling found on the bullets that killed Priscilla.
Okay.
They also found 2 cable TV boxes and remote controls that Daniel had stolen from their home previously.
Okay.
It was less than 24 hours before police were after Daniel again, this time with a warrant for his arrest. And he must have known they would find things because he had already fled.
Okay. He's on the run.
And a manhunt ensued. It was one of the largest manhunts in Massachusetts history.
Okay.
State police and FBI were called in. His picture was all over the news. Everyone knew that he was responsible.
Yeah.
They knew he wouldn't get very far. He didn't have a car. He didn't have a license. He was on foot.
But he knows the woods well.
He does. He knows how to hide very well, too. He managed to avoid them for a couple of days. He was trying to get to Fitchburg to stay with his sister, which just shows how young he is because that's where they're going to check his family.
And if I was his family, I'd be like, no.
Yeah, right.
I don't want you anywhere near me.
He did try stealing cars from homes, but wasn't successful. Meanwhile, Detective Lane immediately thought of the town of Pepperell, where he was from, because that's where Daniel messed with the Bowens, and cops started scouring that area.
Okay.
Daniel gets to the home of a woman named Pamela Makala and breaks in through the back.
Okay.
He tried looking for car keys but couldn't find them, and then I guess got hungry because when Pamela comes home and walks into the kitchen, she finds Daniel sitting at her kitchen table eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh my God. That'd be scary.
He had a knife in his other hand.
Oh my God.
It takes her a moment, but she had seen his face in the newspaper and realizes who he is.
Oh my God.
She didn't really know what to do. She first thought of just finding something heavy and hard and
Smashing
smashing
him in the head. Yeah.
But she didn't have enough time because before she knew it, he had her at gunpoint and forced her into her car and demanded that she drive him somewhere. She drove a large VW van. She was quick to think once in the car, though.
Okay.
She drove maybe a street away and quickly put the car in neutral, opened the door, and jumped out.
Yeah, get the fuck away. He'll kill you.
After hitting the ground and rolling, she jumps up and runs for her life.
Mm-hmm.
She did look back to see the car speeding off.
Yeah, he didn't care about her. He just wanted her car.
He just needed to keep moving.
Yeah.
But she had a bright orange van, so...
Easy to find.
Exactly.
Good.
Somehow like a movie, which I do question this part, but Joe Turner, who I mentioned, swears he's really good friends with Pamela now, says that she was running, she sees a cruiser and stops it, which is like straight from a movie.
Right.
It just happened to be the same cop that suggested Daniel LaPlante was the perp, Thomas Lane.
Yeah, this is totally a movie.
She points him in the direction Daniel drove off, and he radios other police officers to join him. Now, in a documentary, Thomas Lane tells it all a bit differently. He said he was searching the area and pulled up to Pamela's home. She was outside and asked for his help.
Okay.
She was scared to go back in her home alone. He goes inside and hears something upstairs. He heads upstairs and finds a shotgun on the floor and an upstairs window open.
Okay.
Daniel had jumped out the window onto her garage and ran into the woods. The husband said that the shotgun was his, but that he was now missing a handgun and ammunition.
Okay.
There's no mention of her VW van, but I know that the VW van is part of the story because there's police pictures of it.
Okay. So it's so weird how things get distorted.
Who's telling the true chain of events, Pamela or the cop?
Right.
Unfortunately, without police records or statements, there's no way for us to verify that.
Yeah.
But why would either lie? Like, it's confusing. Either way, Daniel got away.
In a VW van.
What does it matter how? One version is true.
Yeah.
I'm just not convinced which is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Daniel could have gone anywhere from there, but they thought he might try and get on a train. So they called in and had all the trains stopped, but still went there and looked around for him. While searching near one of the train stations in the town of Ayer, they noticed a lumber yard across the street.
Okay.
They had search dogs with them, and the dogs were pulling them toward the lumber yard.
Mm-hmm.
So they started searching the yard and were pulled to the back of the yard where there was a big dumpster. An officer heard a noise near the dumpster, so they surrounded it. They thought he was maybe inside or hiding behind it and yelled at him to come out. One cop looked inside, moved a bit of trash out of the way, and there he was.
Crazy. I was saying, and there were 3 raccoons.
I know, right? He surrendered. Daniel was arrested for Priscilla, Abigail, and Billy's brutal murders on December 4th, 1987.
Okay. Quickly, at least.
Yeah. It's like he's good at hiding, but then he hides like a child. Let
Because
me put some trash on me.
Yeah. He's not
Let
all
me
there.
put some clothes on my head.
Right.
During his trial, he showed no remorse, no emotion whatsoever. Police ended up finding the murder weapon in an abandoned vehicle on the Moore property. It was a .22 revolver. He was convicted in October 1988 and sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences with no chance of parole.
Good job, jury or sentencing or whoever.
I mean,
judge.
it's pretty clear.
Yeah, he's disturbed.
From the years of 1988 to 2014, Daniel attempted to sue the courts multiple times for violation of his rights. In one case, he claimed that the prison system violated his religious rights as he was a practicing Wiccan, claiming that he required sufficient materials in order to carry out certain rites, but had been denied by prison officials.
Oh my God. No, sorry, dude.
I think another one was they weren't giving him access to the law library. It's all just about his rights within the prison.
Yeah, he's just trying to find anything.
In 2017 and 2019, LaPlante appealed for a reduced sentence and to be paroled.
Nope, never. Hopefully. Don't tell me he's out.
He's not.
Okay.
His attorneys asked for a revised sentence that includes parole, citing a 2013 SJC case that says teen killers can't be sentenced to life without parole because their brains are not fully developed and they, in theory, can be rehabilitated.
No, they can't.
He can't.
Not this one.
Sean Sellers
There was some other cases we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of this, his sentence actually was reduced to a sentence of 15 years for each murder. So at 45 years served, he will be eligible for parole. During one parole hearing, he did say, "I do not have the words to fully express my profound sorrow. I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused. From the very essence of who I am, from the depth of my soul, I am sorry."
Okay.
But a forensic psychiatrist found that he was not remorseful for his crimes and is not even close to showing progress. A judge affirmed his original sentence with the possibility of parole after 45 years, which would be in 2033.
Okay.
He will be 62 at that time, which he would be more than capable of
doing horrible
people.
things. Yes.
When that time comes, people believe he actually will not get paroled.
I don't think so.
And this is because he has no way of adjusting to life outside of prison. He has spent his entire adult life in prison.
Right.
And he has never shown remorse. Never. That little statement, as soon as he was denied,
Yeah.
back at it. He is currently incarcerated at MCI Norfolk Correctional Facility in Massachusetts. His mother still visits him every week and still does not believe that he did any of this.
These moms.
In fact, she refuses to even talk to him about it. In 37 years, she has never spoken to her son about why he is in prison. They do not talk about it.
That's
never
wild.
have.
This reminds me of the mom for Casey Joe Stoddart with those two little teenagers, and the one that's like, "Oh, he didn't do it." And she's on documentary, like totally.
Yeah,
like this is my little boy.
Of course not.
Sorry, your little boy is a psycho.
Like everybody knows
it. Yes.
Daniel is being treated for multiple things. I'm not sure all of what. One of them is antisocial personality disorder, which he was diagnosed for when he was first arrested for the Bowen family crimes.
Right.
And in case you're wondering about Daniel's siblings, because he had brothers and sister.
They're okay?
They're all
crazy?
fine. They seem like normal people. They seem to grow up normally and went on to have normal lives. The author I mentioned has spoken to them a lot, and he said that the only bad egg was Daniel. Something just broke in him.
The crazy gene came from the dad or from the affair, like something. I don't know.
I don't know.
Did that guy have any other children? The guy she had the affair with?
I don't know.
If it passed through his lineage.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with the Moore family line.
Because they are showing some of that is genetic.
Interesting. But
No.
I actually know nothing about Willie, the biological father.
He wasn't involved at all, so who knows?
Yeah. So you might think I'm done because we got through all that. But there is one theory out there, mainly coming from people of the town.
Okay.
That Daniel was framed in a way. Not necessarily framed, but that someone else was a part of this.
Okay.
And some people do believe this, including, shockingly, Tina Bowen.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm not sure why she believes this. And Daniel's mother, of course.
Well, she wants to believe anything.
And I want to talk about it because it's out there. It's pretty ridiculous in my mind, but at the same time, we've told some pretty crazy, fucked up,
ridiculous stories.
True stories.
Yes.
That you do entertain this for a moment.
Okay.
I hope to God it isn't true, and I'll give you reasons why I think it's not, but I will admit it is difficult to get out of your mind once the seed is planted, so I'm sorry to plant this seed.
Okay.
So this theory is that Andrew Gustafson hired Daniel to kill his family.
Okay.
Now, immediately, I was just like, what? No, why? But Daniel and Andrew had a connection, and not just because it was a small town.
Okay.
When Daniel was arrested for what he did at the Bowens, he needed a lawyer.
Okay.
And at the time, there were only 2 lawyers in the town to choose from, Andrew and another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew was Daniel's first lawyer.
Interesting.
For reasons unknown, he was fired by Daniel early on. No one knows why. Then a few months later, Daniel ends up killing his wife and 2 children.
But that could also be why he targeted them.
Well, yeah. Did he hate Andrew? Did something happen when
Andrew said something like, I can't help you, dude?
Right. But was Andrew like Chris Watts, who wanted out of his marriage? Met this young crazy boy whose next step was clearly going to be murder. He's a psychopath, and egged him on, promising him money when he got out. The similarities are kind of creepy when you think about Chris Watts. Obviously, this is 30 years apart, no connection whatsoever.
Was he having an affair with someone?
I don't know. I'm going to come to that. So Andrew had a pregnant wife. He had 2 young children.
Right.
They're both in their 30s.
Very similar.
Very similar. So it's not unheard of. We can't say that it's unheard of. Maybe his wife was supposed to die, but not his children. Maybe the children were part of it, but it hurt him to make that decision, and that's why he didn't go looking for them.
Yeah.
And he had this alibi that we were going to go on a date that night. There was a lot of questions with this theory, honestly. It was hard bringing this up. I don't want to come off as disrespectful to the Gustafson family. It was a horrific thing that happened, but we've seen this play out. It does happen. I mean, it's risky to talk about this at all, but I think once this book comes out and more people start looking into this case with a magnifying glass, this is a theory that will end up being talked about, as sad as it is.
It would have to be.
So the reason this theory came out at all was because Andrew moved on pretty quickly.
Okay.
And it was suspicious. Now, men collectively tend to move on much quicker than women do.
We know this, yes.
Women may stay single for the rest of their lives, but evidence shows that men, whether through divorce or death of a spouse, do start relationships pretty quickly. I'm not saying that's the case for every man out there. I know that. But there is a pattern compared to women. The difference here is his family was brutally murdered.
Right.
Like, how do you move on quickly from that?
I don't know.
It wasn't a divorce. She didn't die from cancer. And he did move on with someone that he already knew. The Gustafsons were part of a church, and this woman was from that church.
This is the Candy Montgomery story. Betty's husband, remember, moved on with some girl from the church right after she was brutally murdered.
That's true. Her name is Carol.
Yeah.
Priscilla knew her too. Carol was also married when they met her. Her husband had passed away in 1984.
Okay.
They were married for over 15 years but did not have any children, and that was rough for her. When Priscilla and the kids were murdered, Andrew moved in with his parents for a little while. He tried to get an apartment, but actually ended up moving back into the house his family was murdered in just a few months after it happened.
Okay.
Which is odd to me.
That is odd.
But I'm studying for this other case, and I actually run into this exact same thing.
It's
where
money, right?
That too. I mean, obviously that's always, some people can't. They don't have an option.
You have a mortgage.
This is what Andrew had to say. I had to emotionally reclaim it. I had to go back in there and be all right. The house became a source of strength for me with the memories of my family. The love that occurred there was much stronger than the death there. Like I said, I came upon this in another story that I'm writing already. And I'm like, okay, so it can happen. Because at first when I was writing this, I'm like, I don't see how you can go back. Like, how do you use those bathrooms again?
Where your children were brutally drowned.
Yeah, that's a struggle. And having both lost their partners, it bonded Andrew and Carol. She had already been through the worst of the grief, and she helped him move through it.
Right.
Their families were happy for them, but when I say it was quick, it was quick.
How quick?
They got married exactly to the day 13 months after his family was killed. Not just starting a relationship, married.
It's
strange, but it's also something that happens.
Men move on quickly. I can tell you
sucks.
multiple stories. It's just they're not meant to be alone or something. I can go into a whole philosophical thing about it, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're guilty of doing something.
And grief and trauma can bond people in a way that we can't understand.
Right.
Carol will say that when you've gone through this kind of loss, you're just glad the sun is shining every day. Life becomes more precious to you. We didn't want to waste it.
And that's true. Now, I question a woman who wants to move on with a man whose family was completely brutally murdered. Like,
she must have had her eye on him before.
Or they had something already.
Some kind of connection within the church.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew says your life is about your relationships. When you lose them, you lose your life in a way. You either get stuck or you go on and make a new life. But what also threw me in this is they were quick to want to start a family.
Okay, that's weird.
I think it was around 2 years after his family died. In May of 1990, they did an interview for this article, and they were already talking about adopting, saying that it would make the circle complete.
There's just so much nuance to it.
And Carol was 42. Like, her clock was kind of ticking there. And she's like, she lost her first husband, and she didn't have the chance to have a family.
Right.
Now she has a chance again. And by the time this interview was done, they were living in Carol's 10-bedroom colonial common home. So she was wealthy,
She had some money.
She had some money. And they did end up adopting 2 girls, Laura and Holly.
Okay.
Or at least I think they were adopted. I only found out about them through an obituary of Andrew's because, yes, he sadly passed away. If he's a good guy, it's very sad because he died very young at 60 in 2014.
From what?
I'm not sure, actually. They don't say what he dies from in the obituary.
Okay.
And it's just not as big of a case like some of these parts for that kind of information to be out.
Okay.
And he died just 2 days after their 25th wedding anniversary. So they were married for 25 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So.
And from what I could find, the two had a wonderful life together with their daughters. He was very loved in the community. They stayed very active in their church the entire time. They both wore 2 wedding rings, one for each other and the wedding rings of their deceased spouses. Mm-hmm. People said he was light in the darkness, but this was also an obituary.
Nobody says bad things.
Like, I don't want to disrespect the memory of Andrew at all. Like, I have no way of confirming anything. It's just a theory.
Right.
And the only people who would know the truth is one person that's never going to talk, apparently, and another person that has passed away.
Right.
But here's what I think from everything I've put together. Like, just push the theory out of your mind for now that Andrew had anything to do with the murders. Knowing that they had this connection, I think that something did happen between Daniel and Andrew, something that made Daniel target Andrew. Yes. Daniel got lucky that Andrew's home was so close.
Right.
Once he found out where it was, I think Daniel wanted to get back at Andrew. He started out by just stealing stuff and moving things around. And I think it escalated to Daniel wanting to rape Priscilla.
Yes.
And I think the porn magazine, the condoms, the glasses of wine left out, leaving his jacket was just part of the plan to get back at Andrew, to hurt him.
He wanted to ruin his family.
Right. I don't think the children were ever supposed to be a part of it.
Probably not.
Maybe murder was never supposed to be a part of it, or maybe it was, but just Priscilla, and then leaving behind all that evidence of like an affair gone wrong.
Exactly.
Killing the kids was a detour that just distracted him from covering up his steps. Like the wet clothes and socks and and all that other stuff that they found.
Yeah, he didn't know the kids were going to be there.
The stuff
Maybe
that wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
Right. But with all of that, unfortunately, I do have one more crazy thing that I have to throw in there.
Okay.
Joe Turner does not believe Andrew had anything to do with it. But as I was listening, he just kept mentioning things that were odd.
Okay.
It's kind of like one of those conversations that you have where they're like, I totally believe this, but then they mention 10 things that kind of counter that so that it gets stuck in your head.
Right.
So, and this isn't anywhere else. I actually heard this on an interview that he was doing like on another podcast. And this was recent.
Okay.
He got an email from a woman claiming to have been Daniel's girlfriend for 30 years. She started writing him and talking to him on the phone while he was in prison.
Okay.
And she was supposedly his girlfriend from 1991 until just a few years ago when he randomly stopped talking to her. She reached out to Joe, finding out that he had written this book about Daniel that was going to be published soon and hoping he had a way to contact Daniel for her.
Okay.
She told Joe that Daniel gave her $20,000 in the early 90s.
Oh, where'd he get that?
Exactly. Where does he get that kind of money?
Interesting.
I mean, we could just say that she's lying, but she has no backstory to this, and she's saying he gave it to her. She could be a kook. I mean, who else decides to have a relationship with this murderer? But, you know, why even mention that? Like, there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
He wasn't of money. He was a fucking teenager when he got in prison. How the hell does he get his hands on $20,000? But if Andrew had anything to do with it, why would Daniel not say anything when he was caught?
Right, because he has no reason to be afraid at that point.
Why would he go to jail for the rest of his life with the other party getting off scot-free?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Why would he not give up Andrew, say that he was hired to do it, unless he wanted to be caught and it was just one of those things where it just worked out for him? You know, those guys that want the fame for being a crazy murderer.
Right.
I just can't find a reason why Daniel would take all the blame and not mention Andrew unless there was some outrageous part of the story we don't know about. Like he has this unwavering loyalty to Andrew for some reason that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Even saying that, like, that just makes me think of like elite crimes or something with
we
this
know
theory.
that there's a lot of shit out there. Yeah. And you can go down conspiracy with anything if you really want to. So,
but even if that's true and Daniel got money from Andrew, could it ever have been enough to kill 3 people and spend your life in jail?
No.
I mean, he would have had to have gotten more than $20,000. He wouldn't give it all to this girl.
But still, okay, cool. You get like $1 million, but you live in prison. What's the fucking point of having money?
I know.
So he would have called it out.
Unless he just didn't understand anything at that age, which is possible. You know,
I mean, he's crazy, but yeah, he would have brought it up during parole hearing or whatever, you know, when he's saying that he needed all these reasons to get out of prison for Wicca and all the other stuff. He would have brought this up if it had been true. My radar is saying that Andrew being involved is not a true theory. I think that he was targeted because of them knowing each other. The $20,000, I don't know. Maybe he got money for his story. I don't know. Or that girl is literally crazy. She's talking with Daniel LaPlante for 30 years.
Seriously. I mean, it's one of those things. I think, like you, I'm inclined to believe that Daniel just wanted some kind of revenge, that he targeted them. It wasn't just a nice house he came upon.
No, he found them on purpose.
What ended up happening was tied to the fact that that was Andrew's family. Because he went to this house multiple times. Andrew was his lawyer. I mean, he would have seen pictures on the wall. He knew what house he was in.
And honestly, the fact that Andrew's Mr. Church Man makes me think that he'll move on faster too. Because like I said, I bring up Betty Gore, you know, was brutally murdered and her husband was shacking up with a new girl within 2 months too, because they find a way to say this was part of God's plan. And if this woman's in my life, I don't know. I don't think Andrew was involved. I think, yes, all the other stuff looks very suspicious, but not really if you look at statistics for how quickly men move on.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because it happens, you know. It may hurt our feelings, but we're dead, so just kidding.
Men need someone to take care of them. A lot of men do. So,
and honestly, I think if he wasn't caught at the Bowens, he would have done something to them, especially Tina. At least
he would have killed her.
I think he would have raped her.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hadn't tried to, but he was escalating that way.
Right.
So,
I mean, he had already raped before, so
yeah, but she was his special one he was obsessed with, so he was building up further.
But that just makes it extra weird that Tina believes Andrew hired Daniel to kill his family, and she advocates for this.
That is weird.
It is very weird. We're just ending in a bonkers way here. Anyway,
we don't know
crazy story.
We don't know what we think.
Sadly, Frank Bowen has also passed away, and he died young, before he was even 50.
Oh,
So it is sad. These girls lost their mother and their father, like 12,
Trauma.
13 years
Wow.
apart at young ages. That's a lot. And just the traumatic experience of having gone through what they did. So I don't know if Tina like maybe forgave him and because of this ended up having this connection she can't explain, like in her mind, in her heart. Who knows? But that's the crazy ass story.
I only knew the boys in the walls thing. I didn't know about the Gustafson family being murdered.
Me either. I did not.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Both terrifying.
I'm glad
Really,
he's
it's a
locked
sad
away.
case. I mean, he's locked away, but who knows what will happen in 2033. Hopefully they keep him. I don't see how they can release him. Like he only knows prison.
Yeah,
So-
I don't think they'll let him out, but we've seen crazy things happen
I know.
as we've done this show. And when they come out, they do offend again, most of them. So let's hope not.
And sometimes when people are past their years served, they just kick him out because they need
Yes,
money going elsewhere. So he may get out.
because he's older.
Some person just looks at his name and
Yeah.
sees that he's served his time, not knowing the whole backstory, really anything about him maybe. And that's how he ends
we
up getting
talked
out
about it.
one
That's
day.
how Kenneth McDuff got out, because parole boards are very detached.
Right. So
It's different state by state. But anyways, yeah, this was a really scary story. It gives me a new fear in life. Every time I hear a sound now, I'm going to assume someone's in my house, like living there. Or if something moves that I can't find, I'm going to be like, who's fucking with me?
you have multiple levels. That scares me more.
Yeah, I guess I need to get a big watchdog.
No, don't get a big watchdog.
No, too much work.
It's
I have
too
my
much
watch
work.
cats.
I know. When I get up and search my house, I have my spray.
Yeah, I have my spray. I have a baseball bat strategically placed.
Did you hear that? I have my spray. It's with me.
It will be all in your eyes. I have bear spray too, which you're not even supposed to use against humans, but fuck you. If you're in my house, I will use it against you and I'll fight the law.
And before I walk around with a spray, I know where my daughter is. So I know it's not my daughter. I will not accidentally spray her. Yeah, that's it, guys.
Well, thank you for all the work on this. It was a compelling story to hear. I hope you guys all enjoyed it and you heard a different version of it, perhaps, because it sounds like there's a lot of misinformation out there. And that's what we try to do. It's why we research in multiple locations, because we want to try and get to the root of what really happened.
And it can be really difficult.
It can.
Like really difficult. This
Espe-
one was a weird
yeah.
one. Like as soon as I realized that there was going to be misinformation, it gives you anxiety because
It
you're
does.
like,
You're like, what am I going to...
what am I going to miss?
Mm-hmm. It does.
know?
Yes.
But we hope you enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you for listening. And you can find us on social media. We are on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Lucid Lab Podcast.
Please send in your lab reports or any episode suggestions to lucidlabpodcast@gmail.com.
Our next one's coming up in 2 weeks, so you still have time to get some stories in.
And Harris for president.
Yes, we're looking forward to welcoming the first female president in the United States.
And keeping our fucking rights.
Yes. Otherwise, it's a dark, dark time, and I don't even want to think about it. So I'm not gonna.
Alrighty.
In the meantime,
Stay lucid.
see you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.